Alice in Wonderland. A Tiny Tale. One day, Alice was sitting in the garden, listening to her older sister read a book out loud. It was lesson time, and as her sister's voice droned on about the ancient Greeks, Alice's mind wandered. She wondered if it was nearly tea time. She had smelled scones baking earlier, and her stomach rumbled in anticipation. She watched a little caterpillar climb a blade of grass, its tiny body scrunching and straightening as it moved up the leaf. What must it be like to be as tiny as that? Alice wondered to herself. The next thing she knew, she was that tiny. In an instant, the garden had grown higher and higher until the grass towered over her head, as tall as trees. The caterpillar, now half as long as Alice, waved its antennae at her and continued its climb. "Oh my!" cried Alice. "I must get back to the house. If I don't start out now, I shall never be back in time for tea." She began to make her way through the forest of grass until she arrived at the garden path. The path, which formerly had seemed to slope ever so gently, now appeared as a mountain in front of her, and the house was not even visible. "I shall never get home in time for whoops!" Alice felt herself suddenly on her back, travelling feet first up the path. She looked down and gasped. 3 ants were carrying her on their backs. "Put me down at once," she said to them crossly, but the ants took no notice of her. With a quick twist of her body, she managed to tumble to the ground. The ants appeared not to realize that their load had vanished, and continued up the hill. "Well, at any rate, I am now a good deal closer to home," said Alice, gazing up at her house. She found herself standing at the edge of a huge puddle. "However shall I get across?" she wondered. Then a large leaf blew off a tree and landed in the puddle directly in front of her. She stepped onto the leaf and let the breeze blow her across. "I am nearly there," she said triumphantly. But a moment later, a huge blackbird swooped down and plucked her up by the sleeve of her dress. She felt herself airborne. "Oh, bother! Now I shall never get home for tea," she said. The next thing she knew, her sister was plucking her sleeve. "Wake up, Alice! You've fallen asleep again." With an exasperated sigh, her sister stood up. "We may as well end the lesson for the day, as it's time to go in and have our tea." Enormously relieved to be her usual size again, Alice followed her sister up the garden path and into the house.